Hey everybody, this is Dan with painforyou.com. I get a lot of questions from people, or I get some, I'll call them frantic messages from people saying, I was doing great until whammo, and the pain really hit. It hit hard. And I've probably been through that about 50 times over the 13 years that I had pain. So I completely understand. I completely understand the absolute, utter confusion at the fact that you know who Dr. Sarno is, you've studied his work, you've read his books, you've followed these groups, you've listened to my videos, you've done seemingly everything right, and yet out of the blue, or so it seems, whammo. And then you feel like all the progress you've made, because a lot of people will be starting to feel a little bit better, and hey, this stuff is actually working. I'm feeling better, I'm making more progress, I'm moving more, but all of a sudden, whammo, bam, you're back to square one. You've got pain just as bad, if not worse, than you've previously had it. You know, I had that one experience where I literally couldn't get off the floor for 14 hours, and I don't know, that was probably about 8 or 9 years into my pain journey. So my worst pain was not my first pain. So I completely understand and, you know, empathize with you for the frustration. I mean, I would literally be laying on the floor with major back spasms going, I don't freaking get it. I know this is TMS. What the hell's wrong? Why am I still having this pain? I know it's this, and then I would go back through the Dr. Sarno's 12 reminders. I'm thinking psychologically and everything else. And so I just want you to know I understand. I've been there more times than I can count. And nothing could be more frustrating because you feel like you've finally found the answer, right? This is what's going on. But then when you get that flare up and that, you know, kick in the gut of, you know, more back pain or other symptoms, a flare up of whatever's going on, it can really shake your confidence. It can really have you questioning, maybe this is not going to work for me, right? Maybe I'm one of those people that just never gets it, and this is going to be my life. And before long, what do? We catastrophize. We start going down that imaginary road to hell, which is, this is my future life. I'm never going to get out of this. And we can literally look back and say, I've been doing this TMS-based work, or these emotional processes, for months, years, and I'm not getting anywhere. What's wrong? And so the flare-up is really just an indicator that there are still things that are being kind of pushed aside, whether it be consciously or the old subconscious programs being pushed aside into the subconscious brain. I believe that there's a reservoir down there. It's like the basement. Let's do a basement analogy. You've got a basement in the house, and every time there's an emotion that you go, I'm pissed off, but I don't have time for that, I'm just going to put it out of my head. You open the basement door, you take that emotion, you shove it down there. Or we all have subconscious programs that we got from our upbringing. You know, between birth and 7 years old, we were a sponge, and we just kind of took in the experiences around us and formed this subconscious belief about emotions. So if you had a parent who ever said, don't be mad, you're not allowed to be mad at your brother, you're supposed to be nice, right? Anger is not allowed. So, you know, it puts in place this software program and this script that's been running for most of our lives that says, hey, anger's not allowed, right? You know, we're a nice family. We treat each other nice. Anger, you're not allowed to be mad at your brother or sister or whatever. So stop that. I'll give you something to be mad about, right? So that's part of the subconscious software program that's running behind the scenes. We're not even aware of it. So anytime we get mad, this script kicks in before you're even aware of it and opens up that basement door and locks this stuff down there. So it's not as if you're consciously doing this, because now that you know about Sarno, consciously you're saying, okay, I don't want to do that. So we've got these subconscious scripts that are running. Same with sadness. A lot of people were raised to be strong, be tough, right? And some of the examples were, raised by a single mother and teaching the daughter, we got to be tough. We don't cry. Don't let them see you cry. Okay? And that's where these things come from. So it really becomes our job to say, okay, number one, acknowledge and accept that this is happening. It's not this one thing that caused all this problem. It's this accumulation of unresolved emotions that are just thrown in that basement. So back to the basement analogy. We keep on throwing stuff down there. And it's not like we walk down there and open up the filing cabinet and look for, a nice, neatly organized filing system. It's just basically this negative emotion, whether it be anger, rage, fear, sadness, guilt, shame, jealousy, envy, despair, whatever it may be. We just, when we say I shouldn't feel this way, we lock this stuff down in the basement. Or if our subconscious script is running, we lock this stuff down in the basement. And so it's not neatly organized. It's this one big, massive black ball of mush down in the basement. And the longer we do this, that black, massive junk just keeps on getting bigger and bigger until it fills the basement. And then it starts climbing the basement steps. It gets closer and closer and closer. Eventually it starts oozing out under the basement door. And that's when we lock the door. We get 6 more deadbolts, have the locksmith put them in and really try to keep it tight, but it keeps on threatening to burst into consciousness. And that's when symptoms hit. So when it comes to a flare, it is very likely that the reason the pain is coming back is because you may have done enough work to lower the level in the basement so that the symptoms subside. But if you have not really learned to change who you are as it regards to emotions, and we start throwing stuff back down the basement, that will start climbing back up the stairs. And eventually, as it starts bursting into consciousness, meaning upstairs, there's a need for symptoms again, because again, Dr. Sarno said this is a distraction mechanism. And we know it's a distraction mechanism because when we focus on the emotions and we start to empty out that, reservoir of unconscious emotions, what happens? The symptoms subside, or they taper down a little bit. And that's why we can start to feel better. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is when they start feeling better, they say, I can live with this. I'm at a good level. And then they stop doing the work. And by doing that, they have not really taught their brain that feeling emotions is something we need to do continually. And the mistake is viewing ending our TMS pain as something we do once, as opposed to somebody we become. And so I like to recommend, if you finally get to the point where you can get your symptoms, whether it be pain or other symptoms, to subside or get to a point where you're comfortable, that's the worst time to stop doing the work. Because again, what happens is these subconscious programs go, oh, look at this. They've stopped doing this work. I guess that new program they're trying to install isn't important, so let's just run the old one again. And then we start to repress more and more and more. And before you know it, whammo, there's that new back spasm, this new headache, this new bout of IBS. It's because we really haven't ingrained this person who knows how to feel their emotions and welcomes them. Hasn't become a habit yet. It hasn't become a new software script in your subconscious brain. So I always say, ending our TMS pain or other symptoms is not something we do. It's who we become. So become the type of person who, when something aggravates you during the day or upsets you or makes you sad, you give yourself permission as soon as is possible, given the social situations, to really just feel that emotion. Look, some people have very expressive faces, And if you're going to sit in in the office and start crying at your desk and everybody's, what's wrong? And, sometimes there are social situations where we kind of want to manage that so people don't judge us for being overly emotional, right? But as soon as possible, get up, visit the men's room, the ladies' room, on lunch break, get out in your car and take a drive. And if you're really pissed off, get pissed off. Allow yourself to feel it. And when you're done feeling it, allow yourself to soothe. How do we do that? Find something you enjoy. Think about gratitude. You gotta, there's an infinite number of things to be grateful for. But become the type of person who, as soon as humanly possible, allows themselves to honor and respect and feel your emotions. And by having it become who you are, we kind of disconnect that automatic mechanism that says, emotion, I don't want to feel it, let me lock it in the basement. And that black mass of mush stops growing, right? The daily practice of feeling your emotions or journaling or whichever TMS approach you want to take is literally like saying, okay, once a day, I'm going to cast open that basement door, turn on the lights because you just had some newly installed fluorescent bulbs down there, and wham, the basement is brighter than it's been in decades. And you're going to go down there with a ladle. And every time you say, what emotion am I feeling? And you feel an emotion, it's the equivalent of taking a scoopful of those negative emotions, that big boiling mass black of, awfulness. You're scooping it out. You're walking out front and throwing it on the driveway where it can sit in the sunshine. And that's when you realize that, hey, now that it's out in the sunshine, that emotion really wasn't as scary or dangerous as I thought it was. And so this mental construct of the basement being the subconscious, and it's not just one thing. Don't look for the needle in the haystack. Don't look for that one experience. So many of us toiled over our childhoods and all of our memories, and all we did was reenact them in our brain and get re-traumatized by them. The lady I spoke to recently, I mentioned it in another video, said her TMS therapist convinced her that the childhood that she thought was okay, had some good, had some bad. The TMS therapist convinced her that it was horrible and this is why you're in pain. And it completely reframed this lady to view her childhood as awful. So look, I don't like going backwards in time. We're not time travelers. We can't travel back in time. We can't go punch the bully in the nose and change things. But what we can do is, like I say often, go get the lesson. What's the lesson from that experience? The bully was probably somebody who was bullied at home by his dad or his mom or whatever, and was taking it out on other people because that's kind of how he learned to socialize and interact with people. So you get angry and you hurt other people because that's what somebody did to him. So look, the lesson is what's going to keep us safe. We don't need the emotional charge anymore. And I really don't believe there's value in revisiting our childhood over and over and over and over again. I don't think that helps. All that's doing is taking a really old experience that probably up until you started doing this work wasn't haunting you every single day. And if it was, look, I get it. Many people have had horrible traumatic childhoods and past lives that were really, really difficult and traumatic. I'm not minimizing that at all. But what I'm suggesting is revisiting that every day as you do this TMS work. I don't believe that's going to help you. I've heard enough people commenting on my posts and videos and private conversations that say, yeah, when I did that, my symptoms and pain got worse. So I've got a lot of anecdotal evidence from these conversations that say toiling over our childhood looking for that needle in a haystack didn't get me anywhere, it got me worse. So focus on the right now emotions. What's going on right now? And look, if the right now emotions are about your childhood, then you're probably in story mode, which means you're watching the stories of your childhood over and over again, which means you are revisiting them, which again, I don't believe helps. So what I would encourage you to do is, as you do this work, What's bugging you now? What's really upsetting you now? Both about the outside world as well as the inner world. What's going on the outside world and the inner world? Focus there, and you'll find that you're going to make a lot of progress. As for what to do when you have a flare-up, just remind yourself. Watch this video again if you run into a flare-up, because going back to the core fundamentals and understanding what's going on, the reason for the pain is there to distract you, and look at the actions you've been taking. And look, sometimes doing this work can reactivate an old emotional trauma and can cause the pain to spike. A lot of people say, you're making progress. Look, the pain going up is good news. And it actually is, but it's really frustrating and really scary sometimes. But it means that you're essentially proving that it's this mind-body distraction pain going on and not some physical structural thing. So pain that moves up or down is evidence that it's a mind-body concept or process going on. And two, even better, if you can make it go up, you can make it go down. Right? The key is to really, empty out that subconscious. Had a conversation with somebody who was saying that some things in our unconscious we're never going to be able to access. And I agree with that. But to that point, I don't think we have to access everything in our subconscious. I think some things are able to be accessed and felt and allowed to pass and allowed to release. So you don't have to access every emotion that's in the unconscious or subconscious mind. Sorry, there's some party going on next door. Sorry about the screaming. We don't have to access all of this stuff in the unconscious and subconscious. We just have to access enough to get that basement level of mush down. And it's not neatly organized, it's all cumulative. So the anger's mixed in with sadness and rage and jealousy and hurt and shame and guilt. It's all this one big black massive junk mixed up together. And our goal is to scoop it out a little bit each day. That's going to lower the level in the basement until you eventually start feeling a little bit better. And again, that's the last thing you want to do is stop. Because if you stop, those old programs are still running and you're going to start throwing little things in the basement again. And the key is to keep going and make it a daily practice. I don't need to do a daily 30 minutes of feeling or journaling or anything, because I stuck with it long enough and I dealt with enough flare-ups after I got better to really get it and have the new subconscious program be what's going on emotionally. And when something pisses me off, I literally will say, what am I feeling? And I just had a scenario relevant to my dad's passing and his estate and his new wife and some really ugly stuff that was pretty infuriating, and how she handles some things. And I chose not to email her or write her, but I absolutely chose to feel those emotions. And I really allowed myself to get pissed off because it was justified. And so just become the type of person who gives yourself permission. If you ever say, I shouldn't feel that way because it's my partner, my spouse, my husband, my wife, my kid, my aunt, my boss, whatever, I shouldn't feel that way. Stop and go. Maybe you shouldn't express those feelings to those people, but you should absolutely honor the fact that you're truly feeling it. Because if you say, I'm pissed off, but I shouldn't be, open up that basement door, you just threw another big ball of mush down into that black mass that's already down there. And so, consistency matters. That's why we recommend a daily practice. And when you start feeling better, do not stop. Keep going. Make it a habit. Make it who you become. Again, it's not something you do once. So what do you do in a flare-up? Relax. You're not broken. It means you were doing really good, but maybe you kind of stopped doing the work. Or maybe you got a little bit comfortable with, hey, my body's feeling okay. I don't need to toil over this stuff anymore. And it really doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be challenging. It doesn't have to be painful. You know, just feel what you're feeling. Accept whatever you're feeling. If you are angry, accept that. What you resist persists. If you try to push the anger away, it's going to stick around a lot longer than if you just accept the fact, hey, I'm really pissed. I was pissed at my stepmom. Still am. And if I get into story mode, guess what? I can get pissed off all over again, which is why I don't think story mode helps. So, what do you do during a flare-up? Rest easy. It means you made progress, you got a little bit off track, and you can just jump back to what you were doing before that got you the progress in the first place. It doesn't mean you have to start all over again. And a couple of people have recently said that to me. Oh, I feel like I have to start all over again. This is awful. You know, it took me 2 years to get out of pain the first time. I can't deal with another 2 years. The great news is it won't take you 2 years. It might only take you 2 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks, because you can't really forget what you already learned about this process unless you choose to set it aside and say, I'm back to square one. Decision matters. So don't decide that you're totally screwed. Decide that, oh, this is a setback, and what do I need to learn from that? Oh, I need to go back to what I was doing before I kind of eased up on this TMS work. You just didn't make the program automatic yet, which means the subconscious repression starts happening again, and that mass in the basement starts climbing the steps. And at some point in time, you know, all it takes is like one significant thing, a family event, somebody ill, a boss doing something, or a big family move, or whatever it may be. And since we really haven't been taking the time to make sure we keep emptying out the subconscious and giving ourselves permission to feel it so it doesn't go in the basement in the first place, we can get that whammo. Here's some pain, because the brain is still saying, I got to protect you from these emotions. And so just get back on track. Don't sweat it. Remember, this pain is not evidence that you're broken physically. There's no structural reason for it. And if it shows up somewhere else, it's still most likely TMS. So just get back on track. Breathe easy. Say, I got this. Lesson learned. I got to keep doing this work. I got to stick with the process until it becomes automatic. And you will get to the point, like me, where I don't have to do this work every day. It's a tool in my tool belt that I can access at any point in time. If I start to get a twinge somewhere, or I start to feel a little reflux or whatever, I just stop and go, what emotion am I feeling? What's going on? What happened recently? What's going on right now? And what am I worried about that's coming down the pike? And so, if you're in the middle of a flare-up, rest easy. A flare-up means you were doing better before. And it means you can do better again. And as long as you don't convince yourself that you're back to square one, which I know it feels like, because the pain is as bad as it's ever been, maybe worse, that doesn't mean anything. The level of the pain is just really, I think, in direct relation to the brain's perception of your need for a distraction. So the quicker you can say, wow, big flare-up. All right, I've been ignoring some things, some emotions. Let me just, all right, pain, thank you for reminding me. I got to get back to those emotions. And the quicker you can get back to accepting the flare-up as a message to say, hey, time to get back to work. Time to work on reprogramming those things. The quicker you can get back to that, you're going to ease the fear about the flare-up. Realize it's not going to take you as long as it did the first time, because you already know what you know. And you're not going to forget that. So don't decide that everything you've learned and everything you've done is out the window and you're starting at square one, because you're not. All you got to do is pick up where you left off, and you're going to be great. So I hope that helps people in the middle of a flare who were doing a little bit better or weren't doing so bad, and then whammo, here comes the major attack of pain or other symptoms. So I hope this helps. This video is a little bit long, but a lot to talk about here. Let me know if this helps. And I guess comment below, please. will this help you moving forward if you do run into a flare-up? Or have you found in your experience that if you had a flare-up and you just got right back on track, that the flare-up wasn't so bad and didn't last so long? If you're agreeing with this, comment below with the story of your own as to what happened. So I think that's pretty much it. 25 minutes, probably my longest video. Sorry about that. I appreciate your attention and support. So we'll see you in the next video. Thank you all.